Hello, folks. This is Wager Detective here, May 27th, 2026. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Wager Detective Report. And we're going to cap this Miami-Toronto game going off today at 1:07 p.m. Be sure to follow Wager Detective on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. Set alerts on Twitter. You never know when Wager Detective is going to drop knowledge, play, content. And on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. I really appreciate all my fans out there, and I love you guys. Let's get into this cap. We're going to talk about the Miami Marlins first, okay? They are 26-30 on the year. They're 5-5 in their last 10, 8-15 in road games this year, and they're 9-5 in one-run games. Pretty good for them in that regard. The last 9. At the Blue Jays, the Marlins are 5-4, 7 over and 2 under in those games. They're scoring 6.55 runs per game to 4.88 for the Blue Jays. That's coming out to 11.43 runs per game average. So Marlins looking pretty good at the Blue Jays. 5-4 last 9 at them, 7 over, 2 under, and they're scoring 6.55 runs per game. Okay, in road day games this year, the Marlins are only 2-7. 7 over and 2 under in those games. They're scoring 3 runs a game to 6.22 for their opponents. That comes out to a 9.22 run per game average. In the run differential department in those road day games for the Marlins this year, they're being outscored 56 runs to 27. So something to keep in mind. Now the Marlins, they are 7-13 versus the American League this year. One of those series they were swept on the road by the Tigers. In their 20 games versus the American League this year, 16 over and 4 under. They're scoring 4.55 runs per game to 5.7 for their American League counterparts. It comes out to a 10.25 run per game average. They've scored 91 runs to their opponents, 114 in that split. So they look good again at the Blue Jays, 5-4. Last 9 at the Blue Jays. But this year, road day games 2-7 versus the American League 7-13. Now the Marlins' last 9 games overall, they are 5-4, 6 over, 3 under, and the wins the games have come against Atlanta, the Mets, and Toronto. And their last 9, the Marlins are scoring 4.33 runs per game to 4.22. It's coming in at an 8.55 run per game average. The Marlins' opponents in their last 9 have scored 2 runs or less 5 times, and they've scored 8 plus 4 times. So it's feast or famine for their opponents. So Marlins 5-4 in their last 9, 6 over, 3 under. Their opponents have scored 2 or less 5 times, but they've also scored 8 plus 4 times. So there's really no in between there. It's either they're going to score 2 or less, or they're going to score 8 plus, in which their opponents have done 4 times in the last 9 games for the Marlins overall. Now, if we talk about who's going to be on the mound today, we're going to talk about Yuri Perez. The Marlins are 1-4 in his last 5 game starts, 3 over, 2 under in those games. In those last 5 games, he's thrown 27 and a third innings, giving up 18 hits, 16 earned runs, 14 walks, and 5 home runs. That's coming out to a 5.27 ERA, a 1.17 WHIP, and he's giving up 1.64 home runs per 9 over Yuri Perez's last 5 starts. The Marlins are 5-6 this year when Perez starts, and they're 1-4 in his last 5 game starts. So 5.27 ERA, 1.17 WHIP, and a 1.64 home runs per 9 Yuri Perez last 5 outings. Now he is going to be on 4 days rest, Yuri Perez. The Marlins are 3-2 this year when Perez starts on 4 days rest. 4 over and 1 under, that 7.5 that's set today by the books. In Perez's 5 starts on 4 days rest this year, 25 and a third innings pitched, 24 hits, 16 earned runs, 5 home runs, 13 walks. That's coming out to a 5.69 ERA, a 1.46 WHIP, and 1.77 home runs per 9 in his 5 starts on 4 days rest for Yuri Perez this year. So if you look at his last 5 numbers compared to his 4-day rest, the ERA goes up on the 4 days rest, the WHIP goes up, and the home runs per 9 go up. So not looking good on what he's giving up in those metrics. And I will say the biggest thing that hurts him, I notice, is walks. And again, guys, 13 walks and 25 in the third innings pitched, they're going to hurt you. And listen, last game against the Mets, he had 0 walks. So you know how that's going to go, guys. If he starts letting these guys get on base, it could be a problem and a long day for them. I mean, he's not going against the greatest lineup in the world, but we'll get into the metrics for both these teams at the end of the cap. But walking guys and then having a guy like Guerrero come up to the plate or Varsho, it's going to be problems for him. So that's that side of the Marlins cap. Again, 26-30 on the year, 5-5 last 10, 8-15 on the road. So that's got to be highlighted, right? The things that are going against them in their last 9, their opponents have scored 8+ 4 times. They're 8-15 on the road. Yuri Perez is 1-4 in his last 5 game starts. The Marlins are 1-4, in Yuri Perez's last 5 game starts. And his ERA, his WHIP, and his home runs per 9 over his last 5 and on 4 days rest just are not good metrics that we're seeing right now. And the Marlins are 7-13 versus the American League this year. So, and the Marlins are 2-7 in road day games this year. All those things got Wager Detective early on in this cap leaning towards the Blue Jays. Now let's get into the Blue Jays side. As you can see, they're 26-29 on the year. A team up and down. I just don't believe in this manager. They went to the World Series last year. They caught lightning in a bottle. And I don't think that they'll ever get back to a World Series, especially with this manager anytime soon. So, the Blue Jays, they are 8-5 in home day games this year. So that's considerably better than the Marlins 2-7 road day games this year. The Blue Jays, again, 8-5 in home day games this year, 6 over, 7 under. They're scoring 4.77 runs per game to 3.69 for their opponent. That's a 62-48 run advantage for them. And those totals are coming out to 8.46 runs per game in the Blue Jays home day games, 13 day games this year. Now, the Blue Jays are 7-10 versus the National League. So neither one of these teams are really great against their, the other league, right? We said the Marlins are 7-13, Blue Jays coming in at 7-10. And in those 17 games for the Blue Jays versus the National League, 9 over, 8 under. Blue Jays scoring 3.88 runs per game to 4.82 for their National League counterparts. Comes into an 8.70 run per game average, and they're being outscored 82 runs to 66 in that split. Now, we look at the Blue Jays' last 9 overall. They are 5-4, 5 over, 4 under. They're scoring 4 runs a game to 3.33 for their opponents. That comes out to 7.33 runs per game average. And they've scored 4+ 5 times in their last 9 games, and their opponents have scored 2 or less 5 times. So if we look at the last 9, like we said, for the Marlins, they're 5-4, and their opponents have scored 2 or less 5 times, but their opponents have scored 8+ 4 times. Now, for the Blue Jays, in their last 9, they've scored 4+ 5 times, and their opponents have scored 2 or less 5 times. So when you look at all this math so far, it's got me leaning towards the Blue Jays, kind of very, very much so. Now, the situational part of this cap, as Wager Detective has in every report, it's a split that we're looking at to kind of see, it's an angle, a situational spot. And this is the situational spot for this game. Now, this is the Blue Jays' last game of a homestand before a road trip with no rest. In that situation, in their last 10, they're 7-3, 9 over, 1 under. They're scoring 6.5 runs per game to 4.5 for their opponent. So they're outscoring their opponents by 2 runs per game in this split. And that total comes out to 11 runs per game, 6.5 to 4.5. So again, the Blue Jays, last 10, situational angle. Last game of a homestand before a road trip with no rest, they are 7-3 in that split. So something to keep in mind there. I didn't mention the Marlins play there, what their situational split was. Marlins road-to-road series, day off on the horizon. So they're going from city to city, but they're going to have a day off. in between. In that split for the Marlins, they are 2-4 in their last 6, 3 over, 3 under. They're scoring 3 runs a game. The 4.83 comes out to 7.83 runs per game average. So again, another split where it's in favor of the Blue Jays, right? Again, Blue Jays 7-3 in their last 10 when it's the last game of a homestand before a road trip with no rest on the horizon. So they're going to roll right into their next series, go from home to the road with no rest in between. They are 7-3 in their last 10 in that situation, scoring 6.5 to 4.5 for their opponents. Now, let's get into the pitcher, Gausman. Now listen, Kevin Gausman, I've talked a lot of smack about. I feel like his potential is there. Maybe they're not hitting for him. The Blue Jays are 6-5 this year when Gausman starts. He does have a 3.23 ERA, and he has a 1.04 WHIP in his 11 games this year. So not bad, right? The Blue Jays are only 2-3 in his last 5 starts for Gausman, 3 over, 2 under. In his last 5 outings, Gausman has pitched 29 innings, given up 30 hits, 13 earned runs, 4 walks, and 3 home runs. Comes out to a 4.03 ERA, a 1.17 WHIP, and he's given up 0.93 home runs per 9 in his last 5 outings. Gausman is, when he starts versus the Marlins, his teams are 3-2 in his last 5 starts versus the Marlins, 3 over, 2 under. In those games, 28.2 innings pitched, 20 hits, 9 earned runs, 6 walks, and 2 home runs. Comes out to a 2.83 ERA, 0.90 minuscule WHIP, and he's only giving up 0.62 home runs per 9. So 6 walks and 28.2 innings pitched. He doesn't walk a lot of guys. And in his last 5 outings, only giving up 4 walks and 29 innings pitched. And against the Marlins, in his last 5 starts against the Marlins, he's only walked 6 batters in 28 2/3 innings pitched. So that's the difference for me in this game. He doesn't give up walks against a team that is one of the best in baseball in stolen bases. The Marlins are I think, first. They got 63 stolen bases. That's number 1 in baseball. You don't want them on the base paths. And you're going against a pitcher that doesn't give up walks, doesn't give up home runs. You know what I'm saying? A very fast team over there. You got the Marlins. That we're going to get into those metrics in a bit. But so there you have it. Gausman in his last 5. Blue Jays are 2-3. He's got a 4.03 ERA, 1.17 WHIP, 0.93 home runs per 9. They're not scoring for him, I guess. But his ERA is looking better than what Yuri Perez is over his last 5, right? You got Gausman with a 4.03 ERA over his last 5 outings, right? And then if you look at Yuri Perez, he's got a 5.27 ERA over his last 5 outings. And Perez has given up 1.64 home runs per 9 over his last 5 outings. He's given up 5 home runs in his last 5 outings, whereas Gausman has given up 3 home runs, a couple less. He doesn't walk batters. His teams are 3-2 his last 5 versus the Marlins. His last 5 versus the Marlins, a 2.83 ERA, 0.90 WHIP, giving up a little more than a half a home run a game over, per 9. And then if we look at what Gausman's going to be on today, he's going to be on 4 days rest. This year, the Blue Jays are 2-3 when Gausman starts on 4 days rest. He's had 30 innings pitched, 30 1/3 innings pitched. He's given up 21 hits, 9 earned runs, 2 home runs, and 5 walks. That comes out to a 2.67 ERA, 0.85 WHIP, and giving up 0.59 home runs per 9. Okay? Guys, this is going to be the Blue Jays game to lose. Can they score against Perez? If they can get to 4 or 5 runs, I think they're going to win this game by a run. Depends on what's going to happen once they bring the bullpen in. But Yuri Perez just walks too many batters for me. And as we get into some of these metrics in day games this year, you got 3 batters, Varsho, Clement. There's another guy here, Varsho, Guerrero, and Clement. They're all batting 300 or better in day games this year. Now, on the other side, Otto Lopez and Liam Hicks for The Marlins are batting .300 as well. If you look at day games this year, you got Marcy and Norby both with 25 Ks apiece in day games this year. They do have 20 home runs, the Marlins, in 24 day games this year, but the Blue Jays got 25 home runs in their day games this year. So it's something to think about there. The Blue Jays got more home runs in day games this year by 5, and they got 3 batters that are batting .300 in day games for the Blue Jays. Varsho, Guerrero, and Clement batting .300. And then they got 2 guys, Sanchez and Okamoto, that both have 14 RBIs apiece in 24 day games this year. So if we look at all the metrics, I just think that Miami, they got speed on the base paths considerably, and they're a good team. They got 45 home runs on the year, the Marlins. The Blue Jays got 51. The Blue Jays are in a deficit in the stolen base department compared to the Marlins. The Marlins got 63 stolen bases on the year to the Blue Jays 24. But again, if you can't get on base, which, as we said, Gausman doesn't walk a lot of guys. You know, you got guys over there on the Marlins that could strike out. I just feel like, through everything that this cap is showing me, Wager Detective is going to call the Toronto Blue Jays. We're gonna see what the let's take a look. We're gonna take a look and see what the money line is. Minus 152. So it was a little bit more earlier. I think it was 154. Let me see what my notes say in my new notebook that I'm working on. It was 154. The line moved a couple cents. It's still at 7.5. That hasn't moved. Minus 115 to the under, minus 105. I don't necessarily know about the over. Alls I do know, through everything I'm looking at, Wager Detective is going to give you a chalk play. You know I don't like doing that. But we're getting closer to that margin where minus 150 is usually the max. But I'm willing to take this because it's not that far off. I'm not laying that much more juice than what my max is. I'm calling the Blue Jays here. I think that they're just in a better spot, and situationally, and just everything they've done this year, home day games compared to the Marlins road day games. I just feel like this is a spot for the Blue Jays to win. And Yuri Perez won his last outing versus the Mets, and he threw no walks. And I think that's the biggest thing that gets him in trouble. And with some of them bats in the Toronto lineup, I'm going to get the last at bat. I like the Blue Jays. So that's Wager Detective's call here at the 18-minute mark at 10:03 in the morning here from Tropicana. Wager Detective reporting from the Tropicana. That's the Wager Detective report. Wager Detective calling the Toronto Blue Jays to get it done here at minus 152. The vibes in Canada got to be going strong with the Canadians on the night. We're going to ride that wave, and we're going to feel the emotions of that. Follow Wager Detective on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. And more than anything else, Wager Detective loves all his fans. Let's go Blue Jays. I'll talk to you soon.